Hello, Global Tribe of Visionaries. My name is Lorna Liana, and I'm the host of the EntheoNation Podcast, and have with me a sister in the Global Medicine Tribe and a client of mine, Rachael Sessions, who will interview me on how shamanic practices can connect us to prosperity, power, and purpose. Rachael is a plant medicine advocate and shamanic guide, and we will be hearing more about her profound work later during the summit.
Thank you, Lorna. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you join us today.
Great. So, Lorna, can you tell us more about your shamanic journey and how it led you to your career and to your life's work?
So I would say that the turning point for me came in 2004. I had decided to take a sabbatical from work. I'd spent about 10 years in the nonprofit sector, and I was feeling really burnt out. And I also had recently connected with the ayahuasca tradition of the Amazon. And after spending some time working with circles in the United States, I felt that I needed to experience the living culture. So I flew myself to the Brazilian Amazon, armed with a list of contacts. Only one person responded to me, and that was the son of the Kashinawa chief of the Hunaquin nation of Upper Jordan. So the Hunaquin people are also called the Kashinawas. And he basically responded to me saying that he couldn't understand what I was saying because I wrote to everybody in Spanish, thinking that they could speak Spanish since Brazil, that part of Brazil is right next to the Bolivian and Peruvian borders. And of course, when I got there, I realized that there is an impenetrable mountain range and forest in between the two. So it's actually not like so easy to get across. So I had that, and then I had my friend Robert Tyndall's second chapter of his then unpublished book, The Jaguar That Roams the Mind. And so amazing things happened through the power of prayer. I really set the intention to connect with the indigenous wisdom holders of this plant medicine tradition. And first the doorway that opened to me was the opportunity to connect with the Santo Daime churches in Brazil. And then I was also invited to participate in a festival that the Hunaquin people of Jordan were hosting, and so that involved a small propeller plane ride to the nearest town with a concrete airstrip, and then 5-day boat journey down a river. And so during that time, as I was working a lot with the medicines, as I was immersed in the jungle, my spiritual channels became more and more open. I became more sensitive, and I started to perceive this message all around me that seemed to be coming from the forest. And it was one of those things where it was clear what the message was. And that message was, Lorna, your mission, if you are to choose to accept, is to learn how to leverage emerging technologies to preserve indigenous wisdom so that indigenous wisdom can continue to benefit the modern world, and these technologies can benefit the indigenous people. And at that point, I had absolutely no idea how to fulfill that mission. All I knew was that, okay, here was something really important and bigger than me that I felt this message and this calling to, to step up to and embark on. And so, in making that first step, that actually led me to my career in high tech, as a internet marketer for my last corporate job was working for a high tech company in the Bay Area. And then I became a new media strategist and basically mastered different aspects of social media and search engine marketing. So basically discovering how to use new media to tell stories and to share information, and to be able to have that information, those stories be discovered so that people can discover the work that you're doing, whether it's a company or a nonprofit organization. Over the years, I've had incredible clients from the sustainability sector, clients who are, social venture companies, and then, of course, transformational coaches and healers, just like yourself, Rachael, and some of the other amazing clients that I work with, who all seem to have some connection to shamanic traditions.
Wonderful. Wow. It's amazing how you were able to bridge the modern with the indigenous and how important that is in our time right now. What kind of shamanic training have you received?
So it's interesting, this whole concept around that I've discovered or come across, which you may have also come across as well in your work as a shamanic practitioner, is this idea about lineage. And so one of the things that I want to remind everybody of in this audience is that shamanism is probably the oldest religion in the world and probably the oldest profession in the world. And so, our relationship to the natural world and to nature and animals as, teacher spirits and allies, and our ability to access trance states and dreaming really goes back tens of thousands of years, and you can see that evidence in some of the cave paintings that we've discovered. In terms of the actual formal training I've had, I really began my studies in shamanic practices with Tibetan Bön shamanic lineage. So Bön is the indigenous religion of Tibet. That was the religion or this that existed before the Buddhists came over from India in the 8th or 9th centuries. So the first school of Tibetan Buddhism that was established is the Nyingma lineage, and that happens to be the school of Tibetan Buddhism that is also the most shamanic, because Buddhism tends to, absorb a lot of the, cultural, spiritual practices of the regions that it emerges in. So I spent 3 years living in a Nyingma meditation center, and then shortly afterwards I connected with my Bön shamanic teacher, and it was then that I really dove deep into shamanic practices of Tibetan dream yoga. Also, my teacher teaches how to heal with the 5 elements. So in the Bön tradition, there are 5 elements. There's fire, water, earth, fire, water, earth, air, and space. So space is considered to be an element as well. Spaciousness of your primordial mind is one of those aspects. And then there's a lot of work with protector spirits as well. And then they also have their own form of soul retrieval. And then later on, I was connected with the Amazonian ayahuasca traditions, and I've spent time with indigenous tribes in Ecuador, in Peru, and then also in Brazil. And so Brazil is kind of like my shamanic home, so to speak. And so I've been going back to Brazil for many years, since 2004, and have spent a lot of time as a guest of the tribes and working with the plant medicine teachers and learning directly from the indigenous people.
Wonderful. And being able to integrate all of those different traditions must be wonderful and so informative for your work currently.
Yeah, and I would say that, indigenous people, they don't have certification programs, so there are like a lot of, shamanic teachers that have these certification programs, and you learn based on their teachings, and then you discover that their teachings are actually hybrids of what they learned about from the indigenous people. And, when you spend time with the tribes, as, I'm sure with your relationship with the Colombian elders, a lot of that learning unfolds over time. It unfolds over spending time in their villages, eating, meals with the families. It's not like a, structured curriculum like, okay, we're going to wake up at 9 and we're going to study these things.
In a classroom setting, it happens through experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. And so can you tell us more about how these shamanic practices can connect us with prosperity, with power, and our purpose?
Yeah, so one of the things that I find so deeply healing and powerful with the shamanic traditions is this our ability to connect with the earth, which is an infinitely abundant planet. And one of the things that I see often in our spiritual community is this struggle between wanting to live a spiritually oriented life that's in integrity, and then the question of being able to receive, payment for your services, or wanting to have, level of abundance. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be like millionaire or billionaire level, but a level of abundance that allows you to really take care of yourself, take care of your family, save for the future, and to be able to thrive so that you can be the best person that you want to be. And so one of the things that I like to recommend to people, if they're feeling this block between the prosperity that they are hoping for or seeking, and having and there being a block with a lot of negative stories around, whether it's spiritual to want to have abundance, whatever that means for you, is to connect with the abundance of the living planet, and to know beyond a doubt that Mother Nature, you as a child of Mother Nature, she wants the best for you. She wants to give you what it is that you need to survive and to thrive, and that the biggest block holding you back from receiving that abundance from this living planet and from Mother Nature is your ability to receive. So if you can open up first to the abundance of nature, to the abundance of, like spring, for example, the abundance of the summer harvest, the abundance of, the fact that we have these big oceans that are full of water, just connect with the elements that you are able to connect with around you, and know that there is an abundance of these things in nature. And once you can open up to receiving that abundance from life, then it'll open up the channels for you to receive abundance, financial abundance, material abundance, for yourself and your family. When I like to talk to people about power, I know there can be a lot of negative connotations around shamanism and power. And so what I want to emphasize is that the power that I'm talking about is not power over other people, to manipulate other people so that they do your bidding, kind of like a brujo would do. That power is your own personal power, your own sense of empowerment, to know that you are perfect exactly the way that you are. You are beautiful exactly the way that you are. And, Mother Earth loves you exactly the way that you are. And, certainly if you felt called to improve yourself or to grow in certain ways, that is your choice, but it doesn't mean that you are deficient in some way. And so when you can ground yourself in your own innate power of being human, and of being a, precious spiritual being that incarnated on this planet, one who is connected to this living planet and in the web of life, knowing that you have a unique purpose and that your life has, meaning. Your life is meaningful, and you have so much that you can accomplish with your life. And just your consciousness is unique and beautiful and powerful, and how you perceive and experience the world, that has value, and that is important. Then when you ground in your own power, then you can accomplish anything for yourself that you set your mind to do. And then, of course, purpose. Once I believe that when you have connected with your own personal spiritual power, and when you are able to open up to the abundance that is available to you in the world, in nature, then all of a sudden it becomes very difficult to ignore that call to a greater purpose, the call to serve, to call to align with a goal or a mission that is bigger than yourself, and to connect with other people that are also aligned, so that your precious human life, whatever you are able to accomplish, that you can leave something good behind that is a positive legacy for other people to enjoy, whether it's the people in your family and the community around you, or even on a bigger scale, whatever that means for you. And so that's why I believe that shamanic practices can connect us with prosperity, with power, and with purpose.
Those are really important distinctions, Lorna, and I appreciate you expressing that to this group, especially surrounding the appropriate exchanges for our time and our energy and our gifts, and being able to cultivate abundance for everyone. And I feel like that does really tie in to the power dynamic, and that you're talking about is not about a hierarchy, right? It's about all of us have that innate power within us, and it's about awakening that in each person, so that no one is above the other one, but we're all just naturally expressing our own purpose and gifts. But it's curious, why do you believe that so many shamanic practitioners and healing practitioners have such a negative reaction around shamanism with power and money?
Well, I'd love to also invite you to share your experience too, since you've worked extensively within the shamanic world and with some of the indigenous communities and with the Colombian elders. What do you see? Because I think what you see too, and is also a dynamic that kind of comes from this older culture and also extends out to our contemporary culture of shamanism.
Mm-hmm. What I've observed from tradition is that, when shamanism originated, as you began, just as the origins of humanity began, the shaman was an integral part of the community, and the exchange for the shaman's healing work was that individual would be cared for, their family would be cared for, they would have the food, the shelter, all of the necessities that they needed to survive and to be well. But in this day and age, we don't have that style of tribal communities and exchange that is beyond money. Money has turned into our form of exchange. And so I feel like naturally with the progression of humanity, and we progressed into a monetary exchange for our work and our time, naturally shamanism also has to evolve into that. And so money has become a necessity. And one of the easiest ways that we can recognize that we've been given something and to offer something in return for what we've been given. So I do find that this community, this world of shamanism, is not separate in any way from the modern struggles of power dynamics and hierarchies, and so I see that as turning into abuse of power even within the shamanic world, and people from the outside looking in, seeing that dynamic as a reflection of our kind of everyday society and the weaknesses there, which is what I find so empowering and beautiful about this opportunity as well, as we step into more of a modern shaman world, is that we can, as modern shamans, as healers, seek to balance out those everyday abuses of power and those everyday hierarchy battles and battles with money and abundance through our balancing these types of exchanges in a healing capacity.
Yeah, I also want to highlight the fact that some of these traditional indigenous cultures also had a lot of history with sorcery or brujeria. And so the same, plant doctor might be available to be hired to, heal a person or make another person sick, and they received payment for those things, and so I think it's really important for people to realize too that it's this tradition is a doctoring for a lot of the indigenous cultures. The tradition of plant medicine healing is a doctoring tradition, not necessarily a like spiritual monastic tradition with a lot of codes of conduct that the doctor, the curandero might follow. So it's good to be aware of those things and to not like put your spiritual well-being, like hand over your spiritual well-being to this person that's really actually trying to physically heal you or heal your body, mind, and spirit, but approaching it from more of a doctor perspective. And so I think what's really exciting and needed in this world right now is this this integration too of people who are interested in these plant medicine traditions, but who come from other backgrounds. Like they might have years, a contemporary shaman who is a non-indigenous might have had years of yoga training, or be trained as a psychotherapist, and now serving plant medicine circles as an integrated form of healing. I think all those different modalities, these new modalities are needed. And so I do want to, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are too, Rachael, on this idea that, spirituality and shamanism should be free. And so, I've had questions like that come up. And when I think about it too, I think, well, back in the day, shamans were paid in some way, whether it was cash or a chicken. And so, what are your thoughts about the economic exchange that occurs, whether you're offering a shamanic service or, offering information, things that actually cost time, energy, and money for the person that is offering?
Exactly. I definitely believe that there needs to be some kind of energy exchange. I also believe in just that's part of the laws of the universe, that in order that there's a nonstop cycle of giving and receiving, and in order to be on the receiving end, we also have to be on the giving end. So whether it be through money or through another form, there has to be some kind of an exchange. For us, the simplest form right now is money. I do also recognize that there's a lot of cost and time that goes into it from the practitioner level, and all of the hours of training and the travels to these different locations where we receive the training, all of the supplies and the time that goes into it is cost money, and so I do think that that's an important thing. I think the for me, the most important balancing point is to not make that the priority, but just a necessity and something that naturally flows. I always, in my personal work with everyone on an individual basis of, if you don't have this particular number that we're requesting, then how can we work with you? What is another way that you can offer an exchange, whether it be with your time in service to the community or to the individual in whatever way. But if you have the money, then that's, the easiest and the most expedient way of exchange. But I really do stand by that need, because otherwise, these individuals who are offering all of these services don't have what they need to be able to be strong and to take care of their family and to be well. And then the balance is just skewed and off, and it's impossible to give to the full potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a really interesting conversation that came about at the World Ayahuasca Conference around the commercialization of ayahuasca. And it was really interesting to see, the clash between the churches and the church leaders and then the indigenous shamans, because the church leaders were talking about how the shamans were commercializing ayahuasca and profiting from it. And the shamans were like, but wait, this is our medicine that we've used for thousands of years. It takes a lot of time and energy to prepare the medicine, to transport it and all. And then there's our time of being able to offer it, so why shouldn't we be compensated for that? And hey, look at you churches, your, members all pay monthly dues or whatever. And then you guys are shipping, like hundreds of liters of ayahuasca overseas, and then other people are, and buying it from you. So what about that commercialization? So it's really interesting to, I think it's an important, phenomenon to be aware of, around plant medicines, whether it's ayahuasca or, iboga or, huachuma or, visionary mushrooms. But I think it's also to have important to have a certain amount of discernment. Okay, where is the discomfort coming from? Is it coming from a story of lack within your own history? Like, is it like a story of self-limitation that comes from your own belief system, from your family, versus looking at like the fair economic exchange? Like, oh my gosh, this ceremony is like 10 hours long, and it's at this retreat center, and they had to buy all this toilet paper and the food and all that, and then like these people were up all night long, so what is the fair economic exchange? And then also, profiteering. I think, you can look at a certain scenario and start to see if there is some type of profiteering motivation in it, because maybe the discrepancy of what you're receiving and then what they're charging is really big.
Right.
And so then it's like, oh, goodness gracious, like, the going rate for a, ceremony is, typically, like, I don't know, between $100 and $300, depending on who it is, and dollars, and then the person's charging, $1,000, for like the same time frame. So then it's like, okay, why is that? And then are you in alignment with it? So, just have some discernment over, what is fair exchange, before just saying, oh, because there's a dollar or a price associated with the service, then it's unethical.
Right. But if you think about it, it's like we got a massage, an hour-long massage, and what's that, $60 to $100 an hour?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think someone is in service, up all night, focused and praying and doing everything they do for 10 hours, if you're on that same kind of scale, then potentially you could be charging $1,000, but they're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a balance. And I think that it's important to see the other ways and other areas of our lives that we do have this monetary exchange, and it's not being questioned. You go to the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
you pay for the food. You don't expect to walk out. You go to the pharmacy and you pick up your medications and you pay for those and then you walk out. And so it's the same thing, just because they're cultivating indigenous plants and indigenous healing modalities doesn't somehow make that exclusive from this natural exchange that we have built into every other relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
Great. So what would you say, Lorna, is the number one thing that effectively transforms someone who is an intuitive, someone who is connected to their innate shamanic gifts, into a visionary leader who is capable of inspiring a movement?
So I would say that the number one thing that will allow you to really increase your impact in the world through the profound work that you're being called to do is to connect with your tribe. Because it's so hard to, do good work but all by yourself. And especially when you look at the good work that's needed in this world, you're up against some really powerful interests. If we look at what's happening at Standing Rock right now, okay, like these are like some deeply entrenched, oil interests, who have power and money and like the armed guards and the dogs and all that. And so, for that reason, like if you wanted to be, stand for something that's good, like clean water, like the protection of your, sacred sites, the protection of future generations, there's going to be some opposition. And so you got to connect with the people that are going to be your allies. You're going to have to connect with the people that are going to be your mentors, that are going to teach you how to do things in a way that's most effective and most powerful so that you're not wasting time. You're going to need to connect with people that, can't be at the front lines with you, but want to also, support you in some way. So your fans, your allies, your mentors. And so when you're able to create your tribe around your mission, then at that point, then your personal mission then starts to become a part of a movement. Maybe you have a very unique way of accomplishing your mission, but then that mission actually is a piece of the puzzle of a bigger movement. And then when you're able to do that, then first of all, like magic happens and everything's just so much more fun, because then you meet people that are going to be like instrumental and collaborators, and you'll have epic synchronicitous encounters. Life will start to unfold like a great mystery, with full of magic and synchronicity. And then when you start to see these signs that you're aligned with your purpose and that people are stepping forward to help you, and that the way that they're helping you and the way that you help them are so, powerfully correlated, then that's when you start to gain that momentum as a movement. And so there are different ways to connect with your tribe. And one of the ways that I like to teach my clients is, being able to connect with your tribe using online tools. And the central tool or engine, that drives the momentum of your tribe is your email platform. Because, you might have like a big network of people and it might feel like people support you, but when you really know that you have the ability to motivate the masses to take collective action, you can see that very easily if you send out an email and say, hey, can you sign this petition? Or do you want to, show up for this retreat? Or, I'm leading a, tour down to Peru, whatever it is. And then you start to see all the yeses come back. that's so much more efficient to be able to coordinate actions than, individually through social media, because you've got 5,000 Facebook fans, or through you. Because I think one of the things is it's great to have your wider social media network, but the truth is not everybody sees your update, and most people don't see your update unless they're in front of a device. So using social media to motivate people is not nearly as effective as using email to motivate people. So that's what I love to inspire people to do and to think about, is if you see yourself as a visionary leader, being part of a movement with a beautiful and profound mission to fulfill, then the most important thing you can do is to start attracting your tribe and start to organize them through your email newsletter.
Mm-hmm. What I really love about your work too, Lorna, is like you were beginning with this bridge between the modern technological and the historically indigenous and native ways. And I feel like especially in shamanism and in healing, we feel like we have to somehow disconnect from technology, that somehow it's been made bad, But I think that it's really the time to start using it as the tool that it is, because we have people all over the world that we can connect to, that are ready to be motivated into this movement, into these calls to action. And what better way than technology, than email, than to connect to the tribe through these amazing resources that we have. So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront and really using that for the tool that it is.
Yeah, I want to share with you a funny story as we close this session. So I have these indigenous friends from Brazil, from the Hunaqueen tribe, and actually from different tribes, from Yoanawa, Hunaqueen, and Kuntanawa. And in around 2011, I literally chased them around, followed them. I was like, hey, can I record your songs and in video and put them on YouTube? And so finally they just all got together, and at the last day of this festival that we were in, they all formally created the opportunity for anybody to record their songs, and they shared their songs. And so basically I took one song, it's a number of people by a river, and then it's in a great song too. It's a kind of a more contemporary version of a traditional song that is typically chanted, but now is being sung with guitar and drums. And then I took that recording and then I put it on YouTube, and now it has 150,000 views. And it's got over 150,000 views is because most people are actually listening and watching the video to learn the song. So that song is now being transmitted all over the world, to people that have never met these indigenous friends of mine, because they absolutely love the song. It speaks to them in some way. There's something about this song in particular. But some of the other videos, they're doing well, but they're not 150,000, right? So it's touching people in such a way where they're feeling called to learn that song for themselves. And so this is the beauty of using digital media and using technology to really just be able to share these beautiful, profound messages and the stories of people that that have so much to teach us, really. And I see that in the work that you're doing, Rachael. So thank you so much for your work that you're doing.
Thank you, Lorna.